Hi, Mr. Genki? A second Gran Turismo has hit the PlayStation. What should we... Chasing trends is nothing new. There's a reason why the terms Doom clone and GTA clone exist, and during the 2000s, studios wanted a slice of the Gran Turismo pie, including Genki, who were already established in the racing genre with Tokyo Extreme Racer, but today, we're focusing on Racing Battle C1 Grand Prix. Catchy. Booting up the game, you're greeted with the main menu with two options available to you, Quest and Challenge mode. Challenge is free play, and Quest is the career. Delving into the Quest mode, I was surprised to see that you have options for your garage. I'm getting a little ahead of myself already, but it's limited to 3 spaces, with the ability to send a couple of cars to a sub-garage. Basically, you can have 3 cars on tap. You're given 5 mil to pick your starter car, and these are starter cars. Both new and used dealers are available. The used car dealer has some gems, but comes with the risk of getting a lemon, so what seems good on paper might be a money pit. Before I knew that, I just went ahead with the used dealer to save some cash early on, and fortunately, wasn't bit. Getting right into the customization, if you played Tokyo Extreme, this will all feel familiar. There's plenty of bumpers, spoilers, skirts, wheels, and light options available to you, some of which gently remind you of the era this game came from. Once you look the part, and hopefully save enough cash to also play the part, you can hit the track. But before you start racing others, there's a mandatory license test. Don't worry though, all you have to do is get around Tsukuba and not die. Once that's settled, you're into the main game, which has 3 modes. Let's see what the game has to say about them.
SP バトルはドライバーの精神力を表すスピリットポイントを用いてライバルと戦うバトルです。
Well, if it isn't our old friend
東京エクストリームレーサー
This is Tokyo Extreme Racer. I mean, it is literally Tokyo Extreme Racer. I'm on a highway doing spirit battles. Now, in TXR, you can race for as long as you want, and here, you're given a set amount of time to challenge as many rivals as you can. The visual difference is some races can take place during the day, and there's brand banners and grandstands along the highway routes. The mechanical difference is you can challenge multiple rivals in a chain, so when a bunch of cars all group up together, you can challenge them all at once and battle them in succession. If you challenge 3 rivals and lose the second battle, then the third battle will be cancelled. But if you challenge 2 or 3 people in the same clan, you have to defeat both of them at the same time, which ups the pressure and helps differentiate C1 from the main series. These events later in the game become great for grinding out cash and NP, the latter of which I think does something. I think NP is tied to progression, I'll touch on that later, but it's definitely tied to the special events. There is of course standard racing, RP battles. It has its own take on the spirit mechanic. Contact with walls, cars, and going off course loses you RP, not to be confused with the RP battle itself, but when you get under 50 RP points, you're forced in the pits to recover your entire RP gauge. And yes, there are pit stops in this game, and you also have to use the pit lane correctly. Can't just dive into the entrance, which is annoying when you really need new tires. Know these tracks very well, but never actually had to learn where the pit entries were. Like, getting sidetracked, but I did one of the endurance events in GT7, and when it got dark, I realized that the Escudo I was driving doesn't have headlights. But also, when I needed fuel, I realized that despite driving on spawn many a time, I had no idea where the pit lane was. Why does it start here? Just let me in! Back on track, finally there's DP Challenge, which is drifting, not double Ps. Yeah, I didn't do much of these. SP, RP, NP, DP, there's a lot of P in this game. What is that? The whole career is divided into days, with different events occurring on each, just like other Genki racers. The moment-to-moment racing can be quite challenging, not because of the AI, only a couple actually put up a decent fight, but because you can't just pick up and drive these machines. Mid-engine and rear-wheel drive cars in particular are thoroughly characteristic here, but that doesn't mean that they're unusable, just that you will have to dive into the tuning menu to dial them in. Much like real life, don't skimp out on your tires, brakes, and suspension. Investing in these will get you a lot further than just sheer power. If you don't want any trouble, just drive front-wheel drive cars. In fact, they're pretty much mandatory on a couple of tracks. But another interesting aspect of the game is the tire simulation. When you start any event, your tires are cold and have to heat up. You'll have less grip and longer braking distances as you'd expect. And when the surface is wet, they take longer to get to peak temperature. Your tires will also wear, especially on Okayama, which has so many goddamn turns. Additionally, you also have to mind your oil and water temps on the longer events. When the car starts to overheat, you'll have less power available to you in both the low and high bands. There is no damage model or mechanical damage, but remember that the penalty for mistakes is tied into the spirit and RP systems. Overall, the moment-to-moment racing, vehicles, and steady progression keeps this game engaging. It's difficult to state just how much the simple act of chasing down another rival, trying to add them to your battle chain, spices up the spirit battles, and how having them available on actual circuits provide an experience unique to C1. Unfortunately, much like other GT competitors that I or you have played, C1 falters in the track variety, only having 10 in total, 3 of which are Suzuka variants, and you will be getting very familiar with these tracks because only 3 are available per field. Fields are categories of events available on select days. There are 3 in total, with fields 2 and 3 unlocking the further you progress, but as it pertains to the early game, I really hope you like Suzuka East. I do. Notably absent as well are the license tests. That initial drive, that's all she wrote. I wasn't expecting anything other than more time trials, but it would be interesting to see how a more in-depth license system would tie into the progression, if I knew how the progression worked. It's a Genki game alright. After about 4 hours of playing, I got the opportunity to challenge a rival, which, after beating them, got me the B-class license, and the next field of events. I then played for another few hours, and challenged more rivals the game presented to me, but they didn't unlock A-class. I'm not sure if rivals appear based off of wins, NP, or by beating a specific or certain amount of racers in the SP or RP modes. I'm guessing it's that, plus it's probably tied into the day system. I'm sure this information is available somewhere in the game, but I suppose now is a good time to tell you that this game never actually released outside of Japan. What I'm playing here is a fan translation created by Igor, and at the time I played it, as you probably noticed, not everything is in English yet. Most notably, the BBS, which is a staple of the TXR series, having various bits of info, and quite frankly, just random bullshit. The BBS, rival names, and comments will be translated in a future patch. These games contain a lot more text than you would think. All the main game stuff, again as you've seen, is completely in English, which is 100% appreciated. Despite growing up in America, not knowing Japanese has been a recurring issue in my life. Like, what do you mean this 50-year-old criticism of the Shinkansen doesn't have subtitles?
This is a win.
Back to the game itself. All in all, Racing Battle C1 Grand Prix, love that name, is a remix of Genki's previous games, in an attempt to branch out into a subgenre that they hadn't yet conquered. But much like the Enthusias and R-Racings of the world, it doesn't quite match up to its main competition, and C1 launched after Gran Turismo 4. But the thing is, despite this game's particular handling quirks and propped track list, it's still a great time and worth checking out. It is silly to be doing duels on Tsukuba instead of Shibuya, but it doesn't make it any less fun, and does come with its own unique challenge. The special events which I mentioned previously do also help provide variation, allowing you to try different cars in one-make races or drift challenges, as well as having drag and time trials. And hot tip for the time trials, they don't have an RP penalty, so if you're on a highway circuit, literally just wall ride, it's faster. And the further you get into the game, the more valuable your cars will become, because not only do the performance upgrades and tuning make a noticeable difference, the former really jumps up in price, making you decide between which car you want to invest in, because you will be switching between cars depending on the track during the mid to end game. Finally, there's a feature of being able to customize your garage, if you remember this feature exists during your playthrough. All in all, C1 may be lacking in tracks, but the moment-to-moment racing really makes up for it, which all come together in a solid and engaging gameplay loop that just works. Though I could not recommend it for long play sessions. Pick up and play for short bursts, and you'll have a great time here. Having now experienced C1, as well as having played TXR and the Drift subseries, I can't help but wonder, what happens if you just took all 3 of these games and put them together, like the Toge battles and sponsor system from Drift, highway battles and free run from TXR, and the standard races and tracks from C1. Throw in the maximum chase FMBs too.
Damn, I just washed my car.
All tied together with the same car variety and customization options, just in a single package. Sanctioned racing in day, illegal racing by night. That's not NFSC, that's Drift 2. Alas, this dream was never to be, but what we're left with are 3 great standalone racers, which all share aspects with each other, but at the same time, complements one another, with the succinctly named Racing Battle C1 Grand Prix being a must-play for existing fans, and one to keep on deck for newcomers. Let's hope that the revival of the Genki Racing project brings on a new wave of Kino.